What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Mansimian/Alex Mathers channel. It's great to see you guys here. Just been catching up on some of my cultural touristy stuff here in Krakow before I leave next week to the mountains in the south in Zakopane. Going to go back there. And I was looking at some of the 17th century art from around the world in one of the museums here. It's great. I mean, the galleries are opening again, which is awesome. I saw a Da Vinci. They've got one, I think, Da Vinci's only painting here, and that was nice. Nice to see some real mastery of the craft in person, in the flesh. Obviously, I didn't see Da Vinci himself, but the painting. And then I went into the Basilica, St. Mary's Basilica, one of the big cathedrals in the center of old town Krakow. And I got thinking about spirituality and spirituality's place in the world for you and I. And I wanted to have a little discussion about that, a little chat about its relevance and what it is, what it means to have spirituality in your life, and whether it's relevant at all, even if you are not considering yourself religious. So that's what I wanted to unpack a little bit. I want to keep these videos fairly short and bite-sized. But I thought spirituality would be an interesting one. Because a lot of the stuff that I share is ultimately about living a conscious, energized, happy life, and including those things, those habits, those practices in our life that emphasizes feeling good, high energy. So let's talk about spirituality. Is spirituality relevant? Because a lot of us talk about how there are several elements to each of our lives, whether that be family, relationships, work, exercise, diet, all that kind of stuff. There are various elements in the pie chart of our lives that need tending to. They need to be brought into our awareness as we, fulfill a. What am I even trying to say? As we go through life, maintaining harmony, balance, and ultimately happiness in our lives. We want to tend to each of these elements so that we don't leave any of these things neglected. Now, I would argue that spirituality is a very large chunk of that pie chart. It takes up a very valuable and important space in our lives. At least it can do. And I think in this modern world, it tends to be neglected, including by myself, in many ways. So what is spirituality? Well, the thing is, I think a lot of people think of religion when the word spirituality comes up. They think of churches and organized religion and the Buddha and Jesus Christ and lots of things that sort of popped up in our youth as we learnt about the world. I think a lot of us have associations with religion. Some of us don't. Or we have these kind of visual associations, whether it be someone like a monk wearing a kind of a white gown, or candles, or meditation. And there's a lot of stuff that people can kind of have stuck to this idea of spirituality. My thought on what spirituality is that it is a thing that is not necessarily anything to do with religion, although there is a lot of overlap. And I think one of the main reasons that religion in its many guises has manifested itself over the evolution of human beings is in recognizing a part of our existence that spirituality points to. So spirituality for me is, at its very pure sense, being conscious and a movement towards consciousness, a movement towards that element that exists in our reality that goes beyond form. You could say that that's energy, and I think that's actually enough. Spirituality is essentially the description of energy flow that exists beneath recognizable form. You can't see energy, but we know it's there. And in that sense, spirituality then sits within understood and recognized science. It's no longer this ethereal, almost culty sounding aspect of humanity. It's like, oh, I don't want to have anything to do with, culty religious stuff that's weird, in quotes. But when we see spirituality as simply an understanding and recognition of energy and the beauty and value in seeing the importance of energy in our lives and emphasizing it and maximizing energy so that we too become more energized in our recognition of it, that for me is spirituality. When I talk about becoming more conscious, what I'm talking about is doing things, whether that be meditation or even exercise, shifting our diet even can help us become more conscious. I'm essentially saying becoming more present, becoming more aware, and I'm slowing down here because this is something I'm still working on grasping in its totality. It's becoming aware of the thread that runs through everything that is not concrete, that is not tangible. It is a recognition of there being an energy flow that runs through all things, that connects all of us. And so in seeing that this is something that is part of our lives, which can often be overlooked and forgotten about in our pursuit of material things and money and wanting stuff, status, all of the stuff that lies on top of a layer of pure, connected energy. There's so much value that can be found in returning to a recognition that energy exists and that energy connects us and energy can nourish us, and energy is really what it's ultimately all about. And I have, on a couple of occasions, suggested that everyone shares the same purpose in life. Every single human being, whether they know it or not, we all share the same purpose, which is to become more conscious, which is to become essentially more spiritually aware. And when I say spirit, again, talking about energy. If you talk to anyone, because I'm in the privileged position of being a coach, and I talk to a lot of people every month, and we often talk about mission and purpose and having something to aim for and move towards in our lives. And whenever I talk to people and we go deep on what is important for them and why it's important for them, whether it be becoming a renowned writer or becoming a painter or doing, working on a business as a means to change the world, everything ultimately points to doing things that encourage self and other to become more present, to become more at one with our surroundings. And this is important because presence and another word for that is awareness, another word for that is consciousness. To be in presence, to be conscious, is to be spiritual, because in presence there is an absence of past and future. There is an absence of the layer of thought we put over things that takes us out of the present, right? And when we're in the realm of presence, we are essentially at one with this incredible energy force that flows through everything. And you could argue that energy is kind of like an algorithm that defines what everything is, how everything looks. I know this is getting deep, but this is for me what turns me on. This is interesting because this is kind of unlocks the secrets behind why many of us are miserable. is because they're not seeing at that moment the simplicity and the beauty of being at one with energy, being recognizing it. So without this video going on for too long, this is really just literally scratching the surface of this idea. So if you want to hear more like this, give this video a like and send me a comment below. But what I'm essentially saying is we want to be aware of spirituality, and we don't have to call it spirituality. It could be kind of minimalism, really. It's a return to presence, a return to consciousness in our lives, and making sure that we don't neglect that side of our experience. We want to include spirituality as a key part of our pie chart of life. All of the things that are important, that are worth bringing in and keeping in. Don't neglect the spirituality side. So how do we do more spirituality? Well, what are the things that move us towards spirituality? What are the things that maintain our spirituality? What are the things that emphasize our spirituality? What is anything that moves us into and brings more consciousness into our everyday existence? And I see that there are things that ease us out of consciousness, and there are things that ease us back into consciousness. We can have a very unconscious day, or we can have a conscious day. It's unlikely that we'll be totally conscious throughout the day. That's like 100% rating of consciousness and spirituality for the day. And for many of us, we dip in and out of consciousness. We dip in and out of moments where we're present, and very few of us have that experience at all. And to live a more spiritual life is to spend more time conscious, more time in presence. So doing things that just make you aware of the simplicity of the reality around you is extremely nourishing, because the more time we spend in our thoughts, the more unconscious we're being, and the more we're kind of polluting our souls, the more we're kind of covering up over this simple energy. And that's what causes what looks like things like anxiety and depression and things like that. So we want to make sure that we're bringing in as much consciousness as possible. Other things, I was talking about easing in and out of consciousness. What I've noticed is that there are certain things that we do that exist out in our circumstances that take us out of consciousness. That could be eating unhealthy foods and getting distracted by junk on TV and that kind of stuff. Those are all things that feel good in the moment, but ultimately take us out of the simplicity of just being present and being unconscious. And then there are things that bring us back into consciousness, which is what we want to do more of as a practice. We want to do more things like meditation. We want to do more things like pure creation, making art, just being at one with the work that we have and enjoying it, bringing love to the things that we do. That is consciousness. So there are two ways, for example, of writing a book. You can write a book and be in your head and be distracted, and it takes ages, and you end up kind of not really bringing your full creative intelligence to the book. And that book will probably take a long time to finish. Or you could bring your conscious, spiritual self to that book and make the experience of writing that book a spiritual experience, i.e. it doesn't mean that you're kind of got a halo over your head and you've gotten all religious about it. What you're doing is you're connecting to that energy flow. You're not allowing thoughts to cloud that energy flow as much as you can. You're being present, and you're bringing your heart and soul to the project. That is a spiritual experience. That is bringing more consciousness to your everyday. I'm going on a bit here. This is, as I said, scratching the surface of this, but call to action, I guess, would be see what you can do to bring more consciousness into your everyday. That is really where a lot of the secrets lie, because you have so much more clarity, so much more wisdom, so much more intelligence that can sprout from you when you are conscious. The best ideas will come to you when you're conscious, when you're not worrying, when you're not easing yourself out of consciousness by numbing yourself. and polluting your body with crap and everything else that takes you away from consciousness. So think about spirituality and consciousness as a key, really vital part of living a healthy, happy life, in addition to all the other good habits you've got going on. Let me know what you thought of this in the comments below, and do like this video if you liked it. Do subscribe, as always, to this channel, Man Simeon, if you like this kind of stuff, and let me know if you've got any suggestions. Speak soon.